877-9799. That is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the program. Hey, joining us now, I want to welcome. We have Mr. Mark West is with us. Mark is a Libertarian candidate for governor, and he's on the phone. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for having me on, Paul. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you announced, what was it, yesterday, the day before?
Now it's Monday night. Yes, sir.
Monday night. Okay, Monday night. Well, so tell us. I want to get into the Libertarian Party of Arkansas here in just a moment, but just tell us why you, Mark West, why have you decided to run for governor of the state of Arkansas?
Well, I think you've spent the first half hour of your program describing why I, Mark West, am running for governor of Arkansas. Our governor, who's supposed to be a conservative, had a press conference today, and he practically begged Senate Republicans in Washington, D.C. to act like Democrats and give him a bailout. He seems to like the swampy water of D.C., and he wants to bring it to Arkansas, and true conservatives need an option to vote for in the upcoming election, and I want to give them that option. I want to give them an option to place their vote in if they're tired of the bullying politics that Asa has employed in this state against Republicans, against Democrats, as far as pressuring people to, withholding funding for certain types of bills in order to get people to vote for internet taxes and things like that. It's shameful to me what's happened in the governor's office since he's been there, considering that he has. He is supposed to be the conservative. He campaigned against these things, and he has pushed them since he's been governor. And the voters in Arkansas deserve to have a real choice on the ballot. And right now, I'm in there as the one true conservative voice as far as fiscal government is concerned.
Yeah,
they don't have that otherwise.
Well, at this point, I would have to agree with you. I have heard from so many conservatives. They Facebook message me. It's in the comments of our Facebook, and they say that they're not going to vote for Asa. And many of our text messages are wanting, I've asked about another option. But, I've had some that just say, I'm going to vote for a Democrat because you might as well. Because at least then you know what you're getting. And, so there's a ton of frustration out there among the grassroots of folks who don't agree with where Asa has taken us, especially when you compare what his campaign rhetoric was about what the Second Amendment says, his opposition to Obamacare, school choice, and all of these things that he campaigned on, and then you look at the results. And I was down there at the Marble Palace, Mark, and I saw, there's official accounts, and then there's what the people on the ground, the lobbyists, people will tell you what really happened. And so you got a lot of these issues that, a lot of people don't know about. So talk a little bit about, you mentioned the Republican Party. Now, from a libertarian standpoint, have you noticed that there are conservative Republicans who are, I don't know, they're not really very high up on the governor's list? What do you think about that?
I have noticed that there are a lot that are not sold on Governor Hutchinson. They don't buy and they don't believe in the brand of what he calls conservatism that he's brought to the governor's to the office of governor. Libertarian, our philosophy is a free market philosophy. We are also a fiscally, conservative philosophy. We want to work to streamline the government. We don't want to make it bigger. And that was the reason so many people pushed to get Republicans in office and get, a governor like Asa, was to keep this private option, this Medicaid expansion from coming to Arkansas, because the voters in Arkansas, they're not, they're smart, they're informed, and they know how budgets work. They know that in order to pay for something like this, the money has to come from somewhere. And basically, Asa told us today that and even though, he said we would have to raise taxes, but we're not going to do that, or we'll have to cut benefits, but we're not going to do that. So we're going to basically beg the federal government to bail us out. And that is not Arkansas. We are the sovereign state of Arkansas. The 10th Amendment empowers us to be a sovereign state. We should not have a governor who who is willing to make us dependent on the whims of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's kind of like
voters in Arkansas are frustrated about that.
It's kind of like he doesn't want to come out and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have done this. And I don't necessarily think he believes that. I mean, I think there's all the evidence out there in the world is like, hey, we shouldn't have expanded this program, 300,000 able-bodied adults. They're not entitled to free health insurance. I don't necessarily know if he believes that, though. I think he actually believes that it's now our responsibility to adopt what Washington.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. It's Monday. Thanks so much for being with us. The Monday before Independence Day. Not the 4th of July, but Independence Day on the 4th of July. So really excited to be here, really excited that you guys are with us. And I know many of you are probably on a nice 4-day vacation. A lot of people not going in, not working today, but a lot of people still working, right? But anyway, we want to thank you for starting the beginning of your, Independence Day celebration with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. We want you to be a part of it. One of the ways you can do that is to call us or text us, 870-275-9799. We just had this morning I noticed that we were mentioned, the Paul Harrell program was mentioned on my Facebook feed because we have a listener who bought a Liberty Machine t-shirt and posted a photo of herself wearing it. We shared that, so you can check that out over at facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. That's facebook.com/Paul Talk Show. So we missed some news on Friday. Now, it was Johnny Cash Friday. We were having a great time like we always do. But on Friday, we get the news. So now this was June the 30th on a Friday before 4th of July. What many people are basically, it's not 4th of July weekend because we're in the middle of the week by Tuesday, but 4th of July, a lot of people going out of town, a lot of people trying to make, I'm a huge fan of that, by the way. I didn't do it this time, but I'm a huge fan of stretching weekends mixed with holidays and, trying to get a good power vacation in. I'm a huge fan of that. So that's what a lot of people do. And so on Friday, we got some news that falls through the crack because Governor Asa Hutchinson decided to spend more money. So, Joe, do you remember that he had to cut $70 million? Well, he restored $60 million of it the last day of the fiscal year. The fiscal year ended on the 30th.
So they only cut $10 million?
They only cut $10 million. That's exactly right.
Well, which for them, that's nothing. That's like pocket change. Like, give me a penny.
Yeah, it's exactly right. But, it's certainly consistent. What it says is if you give these big spenders the money, they're going to spend it. Oh, they're going to spend it. If you give them the money. And, of course, you remember when they cut $70 million one week and then $43 million from the fiscal year that we're in now the next week.
Senate President Jonathan Dismang. We have a revenue problem, not a spending problem. Asa Hutchinson in the paper, we have a revenue problem, not a spending problem. Well, so if it's a revenue problem and you have increased revenues that come in, surprisingly, well, of course, get that money out the door as fast as it comes in.
Do you remember the episode of The Office where they had a surplus?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is.
And they had to spend it, remember?
Exactly like the government's just like that. If they have a surplus, so they go, okay, we have to cut it and make it look like we did a budget cut, make it look good, or they don't do that and spend it all. So that way someone doesn't go, hey, there's $70 million over here not being used.
Yeah.
What are we going to use it for?
Yeah. That's a good point. So refresh my memory. So they had a surplus and they voted to figure out how to use it. Like they were going to spend it on a new copier or something else,
yeah,
right?
They did a full office vote. I think it was either a new copier or new desk chairs.
New desk chairs,
I think that's what it was.
And Pam wanted new desk chairs.
Yeah, and there was someone else. I think maybe Dwight wanted a new copier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
I don't know.
It's been so long.
I know that Michael didn't want the new copier because he tried to get the old one to work and it failed miserably. Yeah, man, that's a great show. I miss that show. I mean, I wouldn't want them. Sometimes I wouldn't want them to bring it back. It is what it is. I'm just saying, I miss The Office. So good.
It's on Netflix.
It is, and it will always be. They better never take that show off of Netflix. I've probably watched it 10 times.
I know that there was a lot of people panicking over the fact that they were supposedly going to take it off of Netflix, but then Netflix came out and said, no, we're not doing that.
It's like the go-to thing. It's
either that or Friends.
It's harmless. I don't know about Friends.
Hey, if you don't like The Office, then odds are you like Friends.
Oh,
and
really?
Vice versa.
I didn't know that.
Well, I know a lot of people who just don't like The Office just because they don't get the humor, but they really understand the humor in Friends.
Well,
I think it's because...
I wonder if they graduated preschool.
Well, the thing is, I think The Office is definitely a smarter humor.
Yeah.
Whereas Friends is more of a blunt, in-your-face kind of humor.
I mean,
Because, let's be honest, Chandler's very upfront with his sarcasm.
Well, you gotta hear the laugh track so you know where to laugh. So you know what's funny. The phone number, folks, 870-275-9799. So this happened on the 30th, spending more money all of a sudden. And, of course, Michael Wickline doesn't get to it until July 1st. There's an article published on July 1st. The next day, headline, State puts $60 million back in budget for fiscal 2017. Says the last day of the fiscal year, Asa Hutchinson restored all but $10 million of a general revenue budget cut made just 2 months ago. Now, folks, to people who are all about government, this is cause for massive celebration. I mean, this is cause for, it's a bigger deal. It's almost a bigger deal than, the signing of the Declaration. In late April, the state cut the budget by $70 million. Budget originally was $5.33 billion. Asked if he made a mistake in cutting the budget by $70 million 2 months ago, Hutchinson said that, quote, no mistake was made in the budgeting process. Quote, this is simply how you responsibly manage a state's budget and how you avoid problems. Okay. How you avoid problems and control costs. That's what we're doing. By revising the forecast, this allows us to replenish the Medicaid trust fund. Replenish the Medicaid trust fund. Well, hey, I mean, we're all about Medicaid in this state now, and we will be for some time. Joe, I know you were gone last week, but the governor came out against the Senate Republicans' health care repeal plan. That was already criticized by some on the right, who were like, I'm not really sure if this is good or whatever. Foundation for Government Accountability, Josh Archambault, he's got a great piece over at Forbes that dispels all the myths and, people, the sky is falling. But the governor came out just like he did on the House bill, and he came out and he said, hey, we cannot have these cost shifts to the states. And I gave you a shout-out last week, Joe, because Ohio Governor John Kasich, Ohio Governor John Kasich came out and essentially said that flexibility was about having more money. It was in a Washington Examiner piece, I believe. Yeah, Washington Examiner. And I thought of you, and I was like, well, John Kasich at least comes out and says that when he talks about flexibility, that's just really talking about more federal money to the states.
He listens to the program.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, John Kasich, former presidential candidate, all the way over in Ohio. He's listening to the PHP. He's like, oh, well, I'll be honest. I have integrity. I'll just come out and say it. Yes, flexibility means more money, more spending. You know what? Look. The fact that you cut $70 million, and then you say we have a revenue problem, not a spending problem, and then you restore $60 million. I mean, this whole thing is so frustrating. Really good messaging, though, because what's the messaging? Well, we did something that was responsible. This is how the budgeting process works. And look, I know we have the Revenue Stabilization Act. I get what they're trying to say, but what most people don't understand that, and they think, oh, okay, let's just take credit for something that has to happen anyway.
With the cut of the $70 million and then the restoration of the $60 million, to be honest, it's starting to look like we don't have a revenue problem.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind, okay, because I got to reiterate this. The $70 million he cut from the budget was $70 million off of an increase. So, what was the number? It was a $143 million increase for fiscal year 2017. So he cut $70 million off of the increase and then restored $60 million. So I don't know, what's 143 minus 10?
Minus 10. 133.
Yeah, so there we go.
Well, yeah, but no, the fact that he says we have a revenue problem, not a spending problem, and he just he cut the $70 million and then restored 60 more, restored 60 of it back. That's just showing that we don't exactly have a revenue problem, but it does show that our spending is a little out of control. That they cut the $70 million and then they're like, okay, we really need this back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to have it. Well, if the money's there,
yeah,
got to have it. I mean, and all along, and this is what I'm worried about. And I don't know, when he cut the $70 million from the increase, you know what he said? He said, don't worry, no essential services will be affected, right? And then he cut $43 million for this year's budget that we're in now. Don't worry, no essential services. People are still going to get their bonuses. Everything's going to be fine. So the next question is, okay, you cut $113 million from an increase. Still an increase. You cut $113 million, and there's no pain? There's no... You have to do without this, or you have to do without that. So if we can cut $113 million and nothing happens that's bad...
Then let's cut some more.
Yeah, then why are we spending that $113 million in the first place? It's an honest question.
So if there are no pains from that massive cut, let's cut a little bit more and see what happens.
I mean, are they supposed to be fiscal conservatives? I mean, isn't that what... Okay, well, we maybe... Now, I thought it was the social issues that were the low-hanging fruit. I still do, but then, but okay. So we disagree on the social issues or a bathroom bill or this, but we're together on the fiscal issues because that's where that's the real economic minds. That's where we take pride in, and we're smart and we know how. No, you don't. I mean, it's the same group of Republican legislators that are together in the clique, constantly having to explain to the rest of Arkansas why their group is right in growing government this time, and the rest of the people that say no, that are actually true to the Republican Party platform, are crazies, and we shouldn't listen to them. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you want to contribute to the program. We're going to take a break. I'm going to get a new whiteboard up here. I just realized this repeal Obamacare now is still very poignant, still very good. But I got an idea for another one. I had a busy 3 o'clock hour, and I wasn't able to get to the whiteboard. I'll throw something new up here. We're going to take a break. Back in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to TripleRPawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's TripleRPawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, TripleRPawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Welcome to Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. There's an old saying, hard-headed as a mule. Well, that's exactly what's been happening in the Arkansas legislature when Republican legislators have tried time and time again to pass an internet tax, a gas tax, and now we see them in this task force trying again to figure out a way to raise even more taxes. And so they just need to understand that while they may be hard-headed as a mule and defy the platform in which they ran on, the Republican platform of lower taxes and less government, that there are a few of us that are real conservatives, and we are what I would call real Republicans, and we're represented by the elephant. The elephant has a long memory, and it will last at least until primary time. This is Donnie Copeland for Common Sense and Liberty.
Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. We're trying to get a whiteboard up. We were a little behind. I don't know. I mean, it is a short week, but, I mean, we're going to be back here Wednesday. I mean, we won't be here tomorrow. We will have a show. It'll be a best of show. But anyway, what we're trying to write here on the whiteboard is good defense. And this is really pretty simple. It's just a reference to I want to give credit. I want to give credit to the Arkansas legislature, the actual conservatives that are there. Because if it wasn't for actual conservatives, we would have an unconstitutional tax on out-of-state sellers via the internet that would be challenged in the Supreme Court. If it wasn't for constitutional conservatives or actual conservatives, I mean, yeah, constitutional as well, we would have a gas tax on the ballot. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in just those two things alone in new revenue from the people to the government. And I just want to say that it's a shame that we had to play defense with massive Republican majorities, but we did play some pretty good defense. Isn't the football saying, Joe, defense wins championships, right? The defense wins championships. Now, unfortunately, our offense was a little lacking, right? We got to do better next year. As far as defending some of this stuff, well, let me just say this. You know, if knowing what we know now about the pitfalls of big government, if they had to pass Medicaid expansion all over again, there's no way it would pass. I don't think so at this point. Knowing what we know now. Now, I know the hospital lobby. I know that's tantalizing, very tempting. But I just don't think, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they'd have the votes to do it. I don't think they'd get, didn't they need 75 votes in 2013 to get this thing through? Speaker of the House, Davy Card, at the time, just kept voting on it and voting on it and voting on it. They kept picking off. I don't know what people were getting. You know what? I guess people were just being convinced by the power of the argument. I'm sure nobody was being given anything. You know, I mean, we don't have any concrete examples of that happening. Oh, you do have Richard Womack, State Representative Richard Womack, claiming in 2013 he was offered a bribe that he rejected. You did have the next the next year you had State Senator Jane English, who was given a legal bribe by Governor Mike Beebe for her vote. She got something for her district, money for her district, for a work training program. So, yeah. But I don't know. Maybe there'd be enough money to do that for everybody, and it would be very tempting. But I don't know. If you just think about it, the disaster that it's been, how, and now we get to the forefront of this, where the Republican governor who ran against Obamacare, Asa Hutchinson, who ran against Obamacare, comes out last week and embraces Medicaid expansion and begs Senator Tom Cotton and begs Senator John Boozman, please don't do this. Please don't end the current level of funding for Obamacare Medicaid expansion. You don't know what you'd be doing, please. Which, by the way, was used by the likes of MSNBC. Asa Hutchinson the next day went on MSNBC and explained his position that is critical of the current path forward. It was also, I said this all last week, but it was also a signal to the mainstream media to freak out. The statewide media continue to write articles about how terrible things are going to be, how Arkansas should panic, is what John Brummett said. And, I don't know, do a little bit more to put more protesters, put more leftist radicals in Tom Cotton's office trying to make a scene, trying to make a spectacle. That's essentially what's going on from my perspective. And I think the whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, with respect to the governor, he should have known better than to ask John Boozman and Tom Cotton to go against a key pillar of everything they've campaigned on since 2010. You know, I mean, folks, Blanche Lincoln lost because of Obamacare, and Senator John Boozman is Senator John Boozman because of her Obamacare vote. It didn't matter how many commercials Blanche Lincoln made about how gorgeous the sunset is or the sunrise is as you're driving across the Delta. It didn't matter how many commercials she wrote. She voted for Obamacare, and everybody wanted her to not vote for Obamacare. Okay? And now you're going to say, hey, please don't reduce the funding, which they've been saying they're going to reduce the funding since 2013. Unbelievable. We got to take a break, folks. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
In D.C. has told us, and that's now a new concept of government, which is everybody is responsible by law for everybody else's health care coverage. Do you think that that's the truth?
No, that's not the truth. But that is ACE's truth.
Right,
ACE's
that's what I meant.
Truth is what works in D.C. should work in Arkansas. And the people in Arkansas don't agree with him. And I hear that in places that I go, conservatives that I talk to. People are frustrated with D.C. politics. I mean, Donald Trump just won the presidency because people are frustrated with D.C. politics and they want somebody to bust it up. Well, D.C. politics is going on in Little Rock right now, and voters need to it's time to vote for an outsider. Send someone to Little Rock who really wants to legitimately break up the system, that legitimately wants to run things different, and who's not afraid of these people. They're, I'm not on anybody's payroll. I'm not getting special interest money. I don't have, I'm not out trying to establish PACs to push my candidates in primaries. I am here for the people of Arkansas to have a voice in Little Rock again. Because as of right now, Governor Hutchinson has hijacked the people's voice in Little Rock, and he's basically a mouthpiece for D.C. And now, in his mind, D.C. is going to betray him by, passing this the reconciliation bill is what they're calling it now in the Senate, where they're looking to phase this out, and he doesn't know where the money's going to come from. And he's trying to pass the buck to D.C. and trying to make it where we're blaming D.C. for his mistake of pushing this and fighting for it when he shouldn't have, when he should have taken a good approach that empowered people and empowered local communities and empowered the free market. Instead, he chose not to and chose to empower and grow the size of the government in Little Rock. And the voters need to hold him accountable for it.
We're talking with Mark West. He's a Libertarian candidate for governor here in the state of Arkansas. Mark, talk a little bit about, kind of refresh our audience with who you are. You live in Batesville. You're a pastor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've been a bivocational minister for about 15 years, and that's just a fancy word that says I work a full-time job and I pastor a church. So,
well, good for you.
But I also work. Yeah, it's a calling. It's not something that you just step into. But I also work for a company called Mechanical Construction Services. I've run the corporate office for 10 years. We work in the power industry. We send crews all over the country doing shutdowns and maintenance and things of that nature. And I handle all of our licensing, taxes, payroll, billing, just the whole plethora. So I get to deal with government all day. So going to work every day makes me realize just how much we need to reduce the size of our government so that small businesses like the one I work for can thrive and grow and create the jobs that we need in this economy. The high-paying jobs aren't going to be your Bernie Sanders type, impose a $15 minimum wage. Your high-paying jobs are going to come when small businesses are set free from all the regulation that strangles them and that corners the market for the giant corporations. And that's what I stand for. I stand for making this a better place for the middle class, for the working class people that are just struggling, every week trying to make sure you've got enough money to pay the bills and make ends meet and get your kids in school. And I've been married for 20 years to a wonderful woman named Christy. I've got 3 children. My oldest is Matthew, and then Caleb is my middle child. He's 13, and then my daughter Makaya is 11, and we're all
Make the connection.
Fighting dependency on government so Arkansas can be the land of opportunity once again. Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. Hey, joining us now on the phone, I want to reintroduce you guys to Mr. David Crow, Faulkner County Tea Party, also with the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance. David, welcome back, sir.
Hey, glad to be here with you, Paul.
Absolutely. I'm glad you could take the time out. I know we're going to try to make a weekly thing of this because we want to get the word out that the Arkansas Tea Party convention is coming up, a couple months, right?
A couple months, and on September the 16th, down in Little Rock at Doubletree Hilton and also the Robinson Center, the new ballroom that they have overlooking the river. So it should be a great day from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
I'm excited about that. You say that again, September the 16th. Is that what you said?
Yes, September the 16th, and we're excited about it. It's sort of a repeat of what we had last year in terms of time-wise. From we'll start up at 8 o'clock and go to 4, and we got Mike Gallagher coming as an international radio host, and also Pastor Iverson Jackson. He's back by popular demand. He's just been
amazing,
incredibly good. He's an amazing guy. So we have breakout sessions, and we've got the Senate and Representatives panel. And actually, that has been one of the more popular things that's gone on. So people enjoy hearing what's been going on, and this is populated by a lot of conservatives. So, they're singing our song, and that's what we're about, and we're just really interested in having as many people come out as possible. We're expecting about 400 people there this year.
Yeah,
should be a rip-roaring time.
I want to give this information out again at the end of the program, or the end of our interview. But so, what do people need to do to come to this event, to get tickets, or to register? Where do they need to go?
Well, what they'll need to do is they can reach out to me. They can let us know via. Let's see, I've got something here for us to send tickets to the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance at 3 Putter Cove in Sherwood, Arkansas, 72120, and they could just mail the checks direct. It's $30 per person, and if you would include your email address and cell number with the check, and that'll line it. People are beginning to buy their tickets now. We've been putting this out on Facebook. And so a lot of people will continue to promote it as we go forward. But
is there a place they can get the tickets online? Is that a thing yet?
Yes, we're setting that up. I wish I could tell you about that right now. We're in the process of having that arranged, and I don't have that information with me.
Well, we certainly want to get that information out when it is available, and because we're going to be talking with you every week until this thing happens. So normally the theme of the conference every year here in Arkansas is Liberty, Does It Matter? Are we still sticking with that one for this year?
We're still sticking with it because we want to emphasize that, because it's all about our liberty. We're an independent group, independent people in the U.S., and we're all about freedom, sovereignty of the state, and being self-governed, self-rule, free will, and it's part of our Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's an unalienable right. It was given to us by our Creator, and so liberty is one of the things that we're really pushing for, and it's been one of those things that's been under attack. There's been just an expanding government, spending more and more money, taking away our liberty, and we really want to know, does it matter to people? And apparently it does, with at least this group. And people are interested in coming and being engaged. And so we're hoping that more and more people will continue to show up.
You know what's interesting? We're talking with David Crow. It's the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance. Again, September the 16th. That's a Saturday from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Make plans to be there in Little Rock at the DoubleTree. In Arkansas, no one in public makes the argument that we have to make government bigger in order to make us prosper, right? Now, policy-wise, I think there's a lot of people that vote for policies that make the government bigger. But nobody's going out there and saying, government has got to grow so it'll solve our problems and we'll be prosperous, right? So, at some point, I think that's self-evident, but it needs to be talked about, it needs to be exposed. And on that, what's the mood, David? What's the mood among conservatives who are, still consider the Tea Party a viable movement, that still, want more liberty? They believe that it matters. Are they engaged, or are there still some who, are there any people out there that are still like, well, in Arkansas, things are pretty good. It's not really that bad. We're moving the needle. What's the thought out there?
Well, talking specifically about the Tea Party members, I think that they're just an array of people that have a number of opinions, but a lot of the really committed Tea Party folks are still focused on smaller government, less taxes, and the like. But there's a core of those folks. There are some other people that have, that are conservative, that have been conservative in the past, and apathy has kicked in because we've made a big movement, over the last 8-9 years, and we put Republicans in anticipating that they would follow the platform, which is smaller government, less taxes, and the like. But what we have right now in our own state, along with the national, the government, is that they continue to grow government. They continue to tax, and so we continue to push for fewer taxes and less government. And I think that, so the mood there is it's a combo of people that are excited about what's going on, excited about the movement itself, but there's others that have backed away and are saying, I hope that these Republicans that we put in office will show us, and they're waiting for the next move. But hopefully they'll come and they'll participate in our activities and leave rejuvenated and focus on the next election cycle.
Yeah, we're talking again with David Crow, the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance, and also are you Faulkner County Chairman? Are you the chairman of the Faulkner County Tea Party again, David?
I am the chair this year. I sure am.
Wow.
But we got a good leadership, and they'll be taking over from me at the end of the year. And Jim Houston will be taking over to be the new chair. Excited about that, but we've got a group here that is still excited about what's going on, and they'll be engaged, and they'll be at the convention along with other Tea Partiers from all over the state. And frankly, we'll have a lot of people that are just conservative, don't participate in Tea Parties, but they're conservative and they want to come here. These two speakers that we have lined up right now, but also the other panels.
Yeah, and that's a huge point. You don't have to be a member of any organized group or Tea Party to come. I would encourage everybody out there listening, if you agree, if you enjoy what you hear on this program, you're going to love the people you're going to meet and the topics that they're going to discuss down in Little Rock on September the 16th. And I really think we need to have a huge showing, actually, down there. I mean, I look forward to attending. And, David, for example, people who've been listening in the last couple of weeks, they probably remember you coming on the program to talk about these incredible numbers that you put out, that you did the research on, about how much larger Arkansas's government is than our surrounding states, than states with comparable population. I mean, really, really in-depth stuff about how many employees we have, et cetera, et cetera. And I just want to say, I want to encourage you to take that information and to plaster it all over cards and handouts, for every person that walks in that door. I mean, I told, I've been telling people about those numbers, and they can't believe, basically Arkansas is 40% larger than per capita than everybody around us. And it's astonishing.
I totally agree. Anytime I say something like that to folks, by the way, it did run in the paper down in Faulkner County. It ran in Northwest Arkansas and the Arkansas Dengas, and everybody is just saying those are staggering numbers when you can imagine Arkansas spending almost $8,000 per capita versus like the surrounding states that are contiguous to us is spending about $5,700 per capita. And that is just amazing. And then you have a governor and the leaders of the legislature say that we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. It is just simply laughable. And so we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
to change that attitude down there and change the lineup.
There's no doubt. David, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Please, I know it's a mailing address for now, but it will be online. Go ahead and tell people who they can get in touch with. Tickets are $30. Where they need to mail if they want their tickets.
They are $30 per person, and mail those checks to Arkansas Tea Party Alliance at 3 Putter, Putter Cove in Sherwood, Arkansas, 72120.
All right. David Crow, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on, and we will talk to you next week. Have a happy Independence Day, okay?
Yes, sir, and same to you, Paul. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Thanks for everything you do. David, folks, the phone number to call us, text us, let us know what you think, 870-275-9799. Back in just a moment.
Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist healthcare program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm ready. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts because I'm sitting here thinking. I've been taking a few notes about what I wanted to say today. I'm gonna just preview what's coming up at 5:00. Folks, in light of the Declaration of Independence, in light of America and what the Declaration of Independence represents, which is individual freedom, which is undergirded, the entire document undergirded by a theology that recognizes that a government is not the end authority in this life, is huge. Just that statement alone, that a government would recognize a creator who is sovereign and who is above said government that is being founded, I want you to understand that that is such an offensive concept today with many people on the left. Not all, but many. And I did a little research because it dawned on me today. I think the media is so offended by flyover country. I think the media and the people on the coasts that represent what they believe is normal and in their bubble. I mean, there is a bubble. Saturday Night Live, right after Donald Trump won, they had a whole sketch about it that was, living in the bubble. I mean, they were even admitting, wow, we had no idea that, the silent majority would speak up. Say, oh, Paul, no, he lost the majority vote. Well, no, he won the majority vote in Arkansas. He won the majority vote in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan. He won the majority of the vote in those states. So deal with that. And that's our system because our states mean something. Yeah, we're a republic, not a democracy. Thank God. But so I got to thinking, what was the media like in the 18th century America? I did a little research. Folks, if it wasn't for the media in 18th century America, we'd be sipping tea at noon. Let me just put it that way. Okay? Would not be the country we are today. If the media of today was around with their same sentiments, same guardian mentality of protecting the status quo, protecting the current power structure, there's no way that the colonies would have been unified enough, would have had the free flow of information enough to make a stand against the most powerful military force in the world at that time. And it just all dawned on me this morning. I was thinking, and it has to do with the CNN freaking out that Donald Trump, tweeted whatever he tweeted. Anyway, I've got some interesting perspective on there. I've probably got some sources that you haven't heard on any of the other. I know I have a source you haven't heard on any of the national outlets. I just know I have one. So I'm going to reference that, and we'll do all that coming up at the top of the hour. You don't want to miss it. By the way, those of you who are just listening, I just want to thank you for starting the beginning of your Independence Day celebration with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. All right. So here in Arkansas, there's something when they go to vote that I want to talk a little bit about. It's called a present vote. So when you have the opportunity, just so you know, to vote for a bill or against a bill here in Arkansas, as other places, but you can vote for the bill, right? You can say, yes, I agree with it. Or you can vote against the bill. You can say, no, I disagree with this. And that's the clearest that you can get, right? Because you're either for something or against something. You're sent down there to make an opinion. Now, sometimes, and this is me being fair and giving people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes maybe the legislative process moves really fast, and there's bills that come up for a vote, and you don't really have time to interpret exactly what they mean. And then there's there's a legitimate political concern that is unavoidable. I don't care who you are. It's unavoidable because you're thinking, well, I really think this bill maybe not be doing what you say it does, but the title of the bill sounds like something that's good. I don't want to vote for it because I think it's bad, but I don't want to vote against it because I may be handing you the knife to slit my throat, politically speaking, in elections down the road. I'm just telling you that's a reality. I don't agree with it. Okay? But those are the things, I mean, almost everybody down there is going to succumb to that line of thinking some way or the other. But then there's the practical effect of that is that a present vote in the Arkansas legislature can effectively be used to be a no vote without being on the record as a no vote, thereby saying, well, this was a great piece of conservative legislation. Your constituents find out about it, and they really wanted it to pass, and you didn't vote for it, but you didn't vote against it, so you can say, well, hey, I didn't vote against that bill. Don't think that doesn't happen all the time. And practically, that's what it means. More times than not, people are voting present because they're really wanting to vote no without actually voting no. I'm just telling you like it is. This is the truth. It just is what it is. Most of the time, you're voting present to not have to pick a side. You get to play the fence because then you can turn around and say, well, I didn't vote for that bill. I didn't vote for it. I voted present. And then they'll tell you that present is essentially a no vote. It's a no vote that can, that won't show up as a no, or it won't show up as a yes on a campaign mailer. So, I think it's fair when scoring these types of votes, when you vote present, it is essentially a no vote because you need 51, right? So you've got to have a certain amount of votes to get something passed. So your potential yes vote is a present or a no. It's the same. They mean the same thing. You're not voting along with the sum that you need to get to pass something out. I know this sounds maybe elementary, but bear with me here because this is what's so frustrating. What I'm telling you here is stuff that the average person that follows politics doesn't get. In their world, in the politicians' world, when it comes to looking at votes and trying to score them or trying to figure out how somebody really stands, the politician wants their vote where they voted yes to honor Miss America scored as the same vote that they made to increase your taxes. They want the vote to honor the Boy Scouts. That was a yes vote to honor the Boy Scouts. They want that scored the same as the vote to raise your gas taxes or raise your internet taxes or raise your tire taxes or give the governor a bunch of money at his discretion, right? And any reasonable person, if you are truly focused on limited government and liberty, and that's a pretty big prerequisite, for some, maybe a pretty big caveat that would kind of negate the rest of their opinion, any reasonable person, if you are focused on those things, you would not count a vote to honor Miss America, as cool of an achievement as it is, along the same lines, positively, as a vote to, raise your gas tax increase. Raise your gas taxes. You just wouldn't do it because they have massive differences on what's going to affect the people, what's going to affect the size of government. Keep that in mind when you look at the voting records. They really would love for you to think, and this is the thing. That's why these low-hanging fruit bills, that's why, you got to look for the propaganda, too. And I mean flat-out propaganda. Do you know what they're going to start saying now? I don't have enough time to get to it, but there's a disturbing piece of propaganda that's going to start coming your way. You're going to start hearing the establishment Republicans say that they've now got $100 million in the long-term reserve fund, and they're going to use that as messaging. And you're not going to know the rest of the story, that they just voted to take that money from the tobacco settlement fund to put it in there. But they're just going to tell you they've got $100 million. They're going to think they want you to think it's because of some sort of conservative budgeting.
Rush, Glenn, Sean and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
In D.C. has told us, and that's now a new concept of government, which is everybody is responsible by law for everybody else's health care coverage. Do you think that that's the truth?
No, that's not the truth. But that is ACE's truth.
Right,
ACE's
that's what I meant.
Truth is what works in D.C. should work in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And the people in Arkansas don't agree with him. And I hear that in places that I go, conservatives that I talk to. People are frustrated with D.C. politics. I mean, Donald Trump just won the presidency because people are frustrated with D.C. politics and they want somebody to bust it up. Well, D.C. politics is going on in Little Rock right now, and voters need to it's time to vote for an outsider. Send someone to Little Rock who really wants to legitimately break up the system, that legitimately wants to run things different, and who's not afraid of these people. They're, I'm not on anybody's payroll. I'm not getting special interest money. I don't have, I'm not out trying to establish PACs to push my candidates in primaries. I am here for the people of Arkansas to have a voice in Little Rock again. Because as of right now, Governor Hutchinson has hijacked the people's voice in Little Rock, and he's basically a mouthpiece for D.C. And now, in his mind, D.C. is going to betray him by, passing this the reconciliation bill is what they're calling it now in the Senate, where they're looking to phase this out, and he doesn't know where the money's going to come from. And he's trying to pass the buck to D.C. and trying to make it where we're blaming D.C. for his mistake of pushing this and fighting for it when he shouldn't have, when he should have taken a good approach that empowered people and empowered local communities and empowered the free market. Instead, he chose not to, and chose to empower and grow the size of the government in Little Rock. And the voters need to hold him accountable for it.
We're talking with Mark West. He's a Libertarian candidate for governor here in the state of Arkansas. Mark, talk a little bit about, kind of refresh our audience with who you are. You live in Batesville. You're a pastor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I've been a bivocational minister for about 15 years, and that's just a fancy word that says I work a full-time job and I pastor a church. So,
well, good for you.
But I also work. Yeah, it's a calling. It's not something that you just step into. But I also work for a company called Mechanical Construction Services. I've run the corporate office for 10 years. We work in the power industry. We send crews all over the country doing shutdowns and maintenance and things of that nature. And I handle all of our licensing, taxes, payroll, billing, just the whole plethora. So I get to deal with government all day. So going to work every day makes me realize just how much we need to reduce the size of our government so that small businesses like the one I work for can thrive and grow and create the jobs that we need in this economy. The high-paying jobs aren't going to be your Bernie Sanders type, impose a $15 minimum wage. Your high-paying jobs are going to come when small businesses are set free from all the regulation that strangles them and that corners the market for the giant corporations. And that's what I stand for. I stand for making this a better place for the middle class, for the working class people that are just struggling, every week trying to make sure you've got enough money to pay the bills and make ends meet and get your kids in school. And I've been married for 20 years to a wonderful woman named Christy. I've got 3 children. My oldest is Matthew, and then Caleb is my middle child. He's 13. And then my daughter Micaiah is 11, and we're all kind of having a family venture this summer. The Batesville Community Theater is doing Shrek the Musical, and we're all going to be in it the last week of July. So, yeah, it's going to be a busy month for us.
Well, you guys break a leg, okay? You got to say break a leg. You don't want to wish the other thing, because that's not good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, we're talking with Mark West, a Libertarian candidate for Arkansas governor. So as somebody who obviously appreciates the freedom that we have to exercise our religion in the First Amendment, free from government interference. Talk a little bit about if you have seen any corporate influences on the current leadership down there. And specifically what I mean is back in 2015, We had the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which was really just trying to mirror what had already been passed in D.C., a decade ago. And, the way the story goes is, the LGBT crowd, they decided to characterize this as discriminatory. Corporations called down to the Capitol, one big Arkansas one in particular, yada, 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 a bill that Asa supported all the way essentially to his desk. He said needed to be rewritten. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't follow that bill particularly, but I do stand for religious freedom. I do believe that you should have what I call the freedom of association, regardless of whether you're a business or another entity, where you can, you have the freedom to choose what you're going to associate with, whether you're associating your business with something or you're associating your person with something that extends to, your religious activities. You should have the full freedom to express your religious activities and have the freedom to hold your religious consciences.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Hour number 2. Happy Independence Day. Early Independence Day to everybody out there. My name is Paul. Thanks so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality, building a liberty machine. The phone number 870-275-9799. The 870-275-9799. The media today, this week, they're now claiming, this is the same media that supporting monetarily Shakespeare in the Park plays that show the assassination of Donald Trump, now accusing Donald Trump of promoting violence against the media. You heard it over and over and over again. Because he was talking about how fake news is and fake news CNN is. And then he went a step further by tweeting a video of him from his old WWE days where he body slams Vince McMahon. The difference is, you've heard it, seen it by now, that Vince McMahon doesn't have his face. Instead, it's just CNN's logo where Vince McMahon's head would be. It sounded like this, Joe. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Very loud, too loud. Sorry about that, folks. One more time. You can obviously see that it's very exciting. Let's see, now we're not getting anything. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right, so that's essentially it. I mean, visually, it's much more compelling. So, folks, I just have to say, now they're saying, oh, Donald Trump's promoting violence, and the only thing I could think of with all of this is that now the media is hoping, and I don't mean to be, I'm just saying, all right, we know that every time there's a shooting, they try to blame it on conservatives or the NRA or something like that. We're seeing that now here in Arkansas with the tragedy that happened at the nightclub down in Little Rock. Okay, and I'm going to get to that in a moment because we've got State Representative Charles Blake, a Democrat, now proposing a magazine ban, magazine capacity ban. We'll talk about all that. But I think the people in the news media are now hoping that one of their colleagues gets killed. I know I'm just telling you, to think that it hasn't crossed their minds, that maybe you may think that's inflammatory. I'm just saying, hoping may be a strong word, but they certainly are now thinking, oh, wow, if somebody in our media organizations actually does have something violent done to them, at worst, something like Steve Scalise, or even worse, where Steve Scalise doesn't make it, you know what I'm saying? But it's a journalist. This would be as much as CNN, every time there's a terrorist attack, hopes that it's not somebody with an Islamic-sounding name. There's been a tragedy. Was it a journalist? I'm just telling you that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed right now. From the same people like the New York Times that are sponsoring a play. Now, more power to you, New York Times. If you want to sponsor a play, it's freedom of speech, whatever, freedom of association, but don't act like you're not contributing to the nut job that goes out there with a rifle and shoots Steve Scalise and ask, hey, which ones are the Republicans? Where are they at? Let's just not pretend that that's a thing. This is one of the funniest things I've seen. I know the president tweeted it, and I know people are like, it's beneath the office of the president to tweet something like this. But first of all, we all know who Donald Trump is, number one. Number two, no one wants to talk about whether or not the stuff that CNN has been reporting, where they had to retract the story and fire 3 or 4 reporters, if that's beneath the standards of journalism. Apparently, there's still some standard out there for the President of the United States, but there are no standards for journalism in this country anymore.
Not just that, it's like, for those who are pointing out that Donald Trump may be trying to incite violence against the media, there are also the media, like you said, New York Times, supporting violence against the president. It's a bunch of hypocrisy being pointed out right there that they're not even, that they refuse to even notice or even recognize as hypocrisy.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Good job, media.
It's because they have the agenda, and they have an agenda. Everybody has an agenda these days. But, Donald Trump tweeting, after calling them fake news, after the fake Russia story that came out, after the reporters having to be fired, he comes out with that tweet, and it's just it was comical to me.
I just want to see if someone points it out to them, like that they're being very hypocritical with the violence against the media.
I mean,
if someone points it out, how they'll react to it.
Yeah.
More will it be? Oh yeah, okay. I guess we are being a little hypocritical, which probably not. Or if it's going to start becoming like, oh, what are you talking about? This is just free speech. And I was like, well, that's what Donald Trump's doing. He's exercising his right of free speech.
Yeah, and
he's the president.
This is the kind of stuff. Let me read you this, because this is the source that I don't think. So there's a blog. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called it's Reggie Hamm, Reggie RegieHamm BLOG. So ReggieHammblog.wordpress.com. And he's got a post from June 30th, why no one cares what Trump tweets. Okay. Now this would have been in the wake of the Mika Brzezinski tweet. Okay. And remember all that with the Morning Joe folks. We didn't cover that here, but I mean, I know this audience well enough to know that you're a talk radio audience, and just because we don't talk about a national story, we talk about Arkansas, doesn't mean that you don't. You guys are news hounds. I get it. I respect it. I love talk radio. Still listen to it. Started listening to it when I was 18 years old, breaking freight in a loading dock, and then driving around in a big kidnapper's van. Not a kidnapper's van, literally, but, just a big, giant van delivering packages and stuff. That's when I really started listening to talk radio. So, here we go. This is what he says. If you are in the media and think you're in one of those zombie movies where all the people you thought were your friends suddenly become glassy-eyed robots and start marching mindlessly toward you, well, you are. Reggie writes, I was raised on Walter Cronkite and Goodnight Chet, Goodnight David, And I'd never considered that any of those stodgy old newsmen reading in monotone had any political opinions on anything, but they did. Then the savior of the world showed up in one Barack Obama, and the press showed us all exactly who they were. I saw several journalists crying tears of joy on the night of Mr. Obama's election. One anchor retorted, quote, "This is the final repudiation of the Reagan Revolution," end quote. I found that telling and a little disturbing. The election of Mr. Obama seemed to be a signal to the press that they could finally, after all these years, put all their cards on the table, and so they did. When Mr. Obama was asked, quote, "What has enchanted you the most about the presidency," end quote, I rolled my eyes so far back into my head I could see a memory from 1975. What was happening? I mean, I got the historic nature of Mr. Obama's skin tone. But as he put forth policy after policy that just didn't seem to work, but was continually given cover by the media, I mentally checked out more and more. By the time of Mr. Obama's last year, I didn't watch televised news anymore. I didn't read any more newspapers. I let my subscriptions to Time and Newsweek and definitely Rolling Stone lapse. Why? Because I was pretty sure I wasn't getting the straight story anymore. And too many reporters had shown me their politics. And more importantly, they had shown their disdain for people like me. Again, this is Reggie Hamm, REGIEHAMM, blog.wordpress.com. And he goes on, and he has what I think is an interesting analysis. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I agree with that first part. How many people are like that? You know, now, if you're a talk radio junkie, you already knew the media was who they were, because we had all these examples historically of them being biased, of them being liberal. But if you're somebody who was convinced by 8 years of Obama that the media was, in fact, who they really are, who they're more obvious to be, you're a new Trump supporter at that point. Now, this guy does go on to say he did vote for George W. Bush the second time, but that leads me to believe he didn't vote for him the first time. So you get the point. Excuse my coughing here. He goes on to talk about the flyover states. He goes to talk about the good people, how they were so fed up and everything else. And so at this point, when you look at the choices we were given between Hillary and Donald, let's just take a moment and let's just be so thankful that Hillary Clinton is not in the White House. Let me just take a moment. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the horror of her being in the White House? It'd be awful. I don't care how many tweets he tweets that are arguably beneath the office of the president. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch. That's number one. Potentially one or two more Supreme Court justices is what we're talking about here. So I don't really care, but I will say this. I think, and I didn't think this at first because, you know, there are bubbles all over the place. We got bubbles in, you know, with the liberal bubbles and the conservative. I do think, though, there are people who might be Democrats who still wanted to give Trump a chance after he was elected that are now starting to see just how dishonest people like CNN are. And just like on the campaign, I think this resonates with a lot more people than you think it does. And it's pretty hilarious. I mean, it's just funny, you know? Yeah, is it political? Absolutely. But if the media is going to get down in the dirt, this is not necessarily a good thing. I'm just telling you, he has no problem getting down there with them. And, again, I don't know if this is a good thing, but there's something refreshing about that to me. There's something refreshing about somebody at the highest office of the land confirming what we all see on a nightly basis if we choose to subject ourselves to that kind of torture, where we're saying, oh my gosh, you guys, do you even hear yourselves? Like, you are so biased. Like, it is incredible how biased you are. And it's obvious if you really take a hard look at the media and specifically the corporate media. If you take a hard look at the corporately owned media, including Fox News, okay, there is a central source dictating what gets on television. Especially if you remove Fox News from that equation and you just focus on the others, there is clearly a central agenda and a narrative that is being put out that is not, as of late, I mean, and as of decades, but from the issue now, which the issue right now is Donald Trump, is just nowhere near the truth if you take a hard look at it. He ends his piece, Reggie Ham over here. It's a really, really good, talking about how nobody cares what Donald Trump tweets and telling you why. He ends it by saying it won't matter what he tweets. It won't matter who he insults. It won't matter how weird it gets. They won't care because he's actually addressing their concerns, and you, the media, pushed them too far away. And nothing short of him committing murder on video will turn their opinion about him or you. They hate you more than they care about his tweets. They checked out. You, the media, helped them get there. And you know what? Even though I'm not a fan of Mr. Trump's Twitter antics, again, Reggie Ham saying this, as I sit here literally breaking the law because I have no health insurance while listening to people say my belief in repealing the Affordable Care Act will kill hundreds of thousands of people, and I watch that absolutely wild, unsubstantiated assertion not get challenged anywhere in the media, I'm starting to get it. He says. 870-275-9799. We got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Back in a moment.
This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. Government is not the author or source of our rights, and you don't make America great again by giving one man in Washington all the power. You make America great again by recovering a constitutional republic where Washington is populated by people who are servant leaders who want to return power to the people and communities. Because what makes America great again in this country are its Rotary clubs, small businesses, churches, schools, fire departments, and little leagues across this land. God bless the people who hear this truth. Senator Ben Sasse.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Robert G. Parkinson over at American History Oxford.com. Print, the press, and the American Revolution. I found this incredible as I was watching all of the CNN stuff unfold, all the media talking about how now he's advocating violence, which is ridiculous considering the fact that they're supporting Shakespeare in the Park plays that show Donald Trump being executed and his wife crying over his dead body. I decided to think, what if the media of today was the media of the 18th century America? And were they the same? Were they different? According to David Ramsey, one of the first historians of the American Revolution, quote, in establishing American independence, the pen and the press had merit equal to that of the sword. Because of the unstable and fragile notions of unity among the 13 American colonies, print acted as a binding agent that mitigated the chances that the colonies would not support one another when war with Britain broke out in 1775. Two major types of print dealt with the political process of the American Revolution, pamphlets and newspapers. Pamphlets were one of the most important conveyors of ideas during the imperial crisis. Think of pamphlets as the modern-day internet, blogs. Often written by elites under pseudonyms and published by booksellers, or you could think of, the comment section of a legitimate news site or, well, of a mainstream news site that's actually more illegitimate. But it brings you to, you put a link in and it brings you to the truth of what's actually going on. Think of those are modern-day pamphlets, folks. We just have an amazing communication system in order to get the news out. So elites under pseudonyms, published by booksellers, they have long been held by historians as the lifeblood of the American Revolution, pamphlets. There were also 36 newspaper printers in the American mainland colonies at the start of the Revolution, each producing a 4-page issue every week. These weekly papers, or one-sheet broadsides that appeared in American cities even more frequently, were the most important communication avenue to keep colonists informed of events hundreds of miles away. Because of the structure of the newspaper business in the 18th century, the stories that appeared in each paper were exchanged from other papers in different cities, creating a uniform effect akin to a modern news wire. The exchange system allowed for the same story to appear across North America, and it provided the revolutionaries with a method to shore up that fragile sense of unity. It is difficult to imagine American independence as a popular idea, let alone a possible policy decision, without understanding how print worked in colonial America in the mid-18th century. According to one of the first historians of the Revolution, in establishing American independence, again, the pen and the press had merit equal to that of the sword. Print, whether the trade in books, the number of weekly newspapers, or the mass of pamphlets, broadsides, and other imprints, increased dramatically in the middle of the 18th century with the general trend of economic prosperity and growing cultural norms about refinement and improvement. So, folks, these were the papers, the pamphlets that were reporting the atrocities of the Stamp Act, quartering soldiers, all kinds of stuff. This is how they were getting their news. I think it's safe to say, if the folks at CNN and MSNBC and NBC and CBS and ABC, they are so entrenched. I mean, just think about it this way. What if all of those news agencies were run by redcoats? That's where we are today. Our corporate media are run by people who want to protect the status quo. And whether for good or bad, the status quo is not in play right now in the White House. I mean, look, I want conservative policy advance. That still remains to be seen. But I'll tell you one thing. You've never seen the media react like this. But you've also never seen in modern day, a president like Donald Trump, tweeting videos of Vince McMahon with CNN on his face, getting body slammed. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
In the workplace or, in the marketplace or wherever you go, you should be able to hold those religious consciences, and that's what I believe the First Amendment is designed to protect. And and that, that would be where I would stand on that.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's exactly right. You get into these situations, the florist, the cake baker, and this type of stuff, and that's why the LGBT crowd, they were saying, hey, this is discriminatory. And so I'm glad when you specifically say freedom in the marketplace, freedom in the workplace, freedom in the marketplace. It's really good because I went down there, I did some man on the street interviews, and with the protesters, I was there with them, and I got some of these guys to admit, okay, well, let's take your argument to a doctor, and let's say this doctor is opposed to doing abortion because he believes that abortion is taking a human life. Their response was, well, you should have thought about that before you decided to become a doctor. And
I've heard that argument, but it doesn't fly. I mean, when you go to provide a service, you see a need in the community that you're providing a service for, and to deny a service is just, it is just part of the basic right that you have as a business owner. The no shirt, no shoes, no service. We've had those type of things in businesses for years. You have the right to deny certain services. And what you will have the impact of, and what you should have the impact of, is if people get mad enough at you for not providing service to a particular group, then they boycott you, and they can go use another business or go try another doctor. It is a complete invasion of someone's rights to force them to perform a service for you. That's conscription. That's slavery, and we left those days supposedly a long time ago. We don't live in those days anymore.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And you get to a point where you either agree with us or you're not allowed to have a business, and that's that's so dangerous, Mark, isn't it? I mean, and think about this: people on the left, whether we're shooting Steve Scalise or whether we're burning down Berkeley or whether we're knocking down a Ten Commandments statue, people on the left they seem to. I mean, we seem to be approaching a time that could lead to some really where danger and violence is a lot more common just based on your political affiliation than a lot of people may even think. We could never possibly get there, but I think tensions are really ratcheting up. What are your thoughts on the climate right now?
I agree. The political climate it's in bad shape. It has been for several years, and unfortunately, and this is the thing. This is why I think we need to keep as much of D.C. out of Arkansas politics as we can, because in D.C. what happens is somebody on the left will do something, and then somebody on the right will do something, and then they'll both say, well, on the left they're doing this, and so we have a right, it's okay for us to, do and say bad things and be combative because they're doing and saying bad things on the left and they're combative. And I'm like, no, that's an excuse. It's not responsibility. You need to take responsibility for the words that come out of your mouth and for the tone of your politics. And if you don't have the self-control to control the tone of your politics, that's something you need to look in the mirror and address yourself. As a libertarian, I believe strongly in individual responsibility. You take responsibility for your actions. And what it's going to take is each and every one of us taking responsibility for our own tone. When we get on Facebook or we get on Twitter, we don't have to blast somebody.
Back and listen to previous shows? Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Welcome back. Here we go. We haven't mentioned this today, but there was a tragedy that did happen in Arkansas last week. We do have an update to the tragic shooting that happened in Little Rock. ABC News reporting a Memphis-based rapper who was performing Saturday at a Little Rock nightclub where 25 people were shot was arrested this morning. So this was yesterday that this happened. On charges unrelated to the incident, according to authorities. Ricky Hampton, 25 years old, a.k.a. Finesse 2 times. That's Finesse, Finese, space, the number 2, capital T, YMES. Finesse 2 times. Of Memphis. And Cantrell Gwynn were arrested at the Side Effects Club in Birmingham, Alabama by the U.S. Marshal Service, the FBI, and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. The Marshal Service says the men were arrested on a fugitive from justice warrant. Hampton was headlining a concert at the Power Ultra Lounge nightclub when multiple shots rang out early Saturday morning. No arrests have been made in the shooting, which police have said they believe stemmed from a dispute in the crowd. Okay, this is the... I'm sorry, I was reading the earlier version. That was just the updated version. 28 people were wounded early Saturday. Gunfire rang out at a concert nightclub in Little Rock. All but 3 were shot. Okay, so it's a crime problem. I mean, even the governor called Little Rock has a growing crime problem. That's what the governor said. Well, so this led State Representative Charles Blake to say this: I'm drafting and will introduce legislation next session that will limit and restrict the amount of ammunition that is able to be purchased over a certain period, as well as ban certain types of ammunition and extended magazine clips of ammunition. I'm starting there, and I expect some of my city elected officials to join me in this effort. This is no time for political survival or timidness. Who's down for real change? So Democrat State Representative Charles Blake, who I know, I mean, I've talked to before, he is on the liberal leftist bandwagon, and he believes that criminals will somehow be affected by banning ammunition, extended magazine, like they will somehow obey these laws. Yeah, it'll become harder for them to get them, they think, but it won't. I mean, it's not going to work. Law-abiding citizens won't have them. You know, more gun laws are not going to prevent criminals from breaking the law. There's not a single sheet of paper that anybody could sign or you could vote on that's going to keep criminals from doing the things they want to do to harm people. Listen to some of these comments. So Jan Morgan, you've seen her on Fox Business. She's a friend of the program. She eventually decides to chime in here. Let me see. Do you see that there? Do you have it pulled up? I'm going to use this screen then because here she is. I couldn't. Yeah, here it is. All right, so Jan Morgan eventually chimes in. She says, "You are a foolish man, Representative Charles Blake. Number one, the people committing violent crimes with guns in Little Rock and this state do not abide by your laws. Number two, limiting the amount of ammunition law-abiding citizens can purchase in this state will not have any impact on the amount of ammunition gang members and thugs have access to. Number three, your post is an embarrassing display of firearms ignorance. Number four, your backward response to this incident is an approach that has a history of failure in other cities and states that have tried it, and, in fact, has only fueled the problem. Do you not know anything about Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C.? Number five, you will never succeed with your plan because, and I thank God for this, a majority of our legislators have more sense than you do about the root of this problem, which, by the way, is not guns and ammunition. Since we all know this ridiculous proposal of yours does not stand a chance in hell of passing in this state, why don't you do something productive with your time and address the real problem in the black community, which is the root of violence and crime? You don't want to talk about that, nor do you want to address it because it's much easier to go after, regulate, and restrict law-abiding citizens' gun rights. heads up, you are mistaken. You come after the liberty of good people in this state because of the actions of criminals, gangs, and thugs. You will be the first in the political suicide line, and I will be the one leading the force to make sure you are head of the line. So, let's see. This has a few replies. Well, it's got a lot more replies. You look here at Megan writing in. She says on this Facebook thread in response to Jan Morgan, who is the owner of the gun cave, I think, down there in Hot Springs. You can debate your point without calling this very smart man foolish. It delegitimizes your point before you even begin. He didn't get to where he is in life by being foolish. He's trying to decrease the violence and shootings in this community, but I digress. Telling him what you gun-toting, law-abiding citizens don't want isn't helping the situation. What do you suggest instead? Suggest alternatives. I'm curious myself. Now, Megan... then people say, Megan, Amanda, I suggest we work on changing the moral compass of man. Until we do that, people will always find a way to be destructive to themselves and each other. Dawn writing, John, you might as well be talking to a wall. She cannot think or see beyond color. Well, that's, I don't know how you would know that from what she said there. She didn't even mention race. But Jan Morgan responds. She says, I call it like I see it, and actually being foolish has not stopped people from landing in elected positions. Nancy Pelosi is a prime example, along with Maxine Waters. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in mass numbers. And then Jan Morgan responds to Megan. Looks like I used the right word to describe Representative Charles Blake and his proposal. Foolish. A person, I can't read that, Joe. Can you read that for me? It's too small.
Okay, so the definition is of foolish, of a person or action lacking good sense or judgment, unwise.
Lacking good sense or judgment. I mean, if you think that more gun laws are going to somehow keep somebody from going into a club, and by the way, have you listened to the video? Isn't there video out there, right? I'm told, and I haven't listened to it myself, that the amount of shots this guy fired off was a lot. It's like so much so that like it's a miracle. I mean, people are saying, "Wow, he fired a lot of shots off," and there's 18. That's a lot of people that are hurt. But apparently, from what I'm told, proportionally the amount of shots that were fired, you'd think there'd been a lot more people injured. So it's really not the amount of ammunition you have; it's the person who's behind the gun. That can do the most damage. So if you're a good shot, you'll do more damage. It doesn't matter how many bullets you have. And, firing a gun is so much about muscle memory anyway. 870-275-9799, call or text. So, interestingly enough, this debate for me, as I follow these things on Facebook, it actually morphed into a different conversation that I want to cover, specifically because of the Declaration of Independence and what we're celebrating, okay? So, a person who's been on this program before that has some of the most provocative and informative, and it's not always provocative, but informative Facebook posts that start really lively discussions, but a civil discussion, so I can really appreciate it. He's been on this program before. His name is Paul Calvert. Okay, so if you go to his Facebook page, check this out. On this whole gun situation, you see State Representative Charlene Fight says things like, plus I'm seeing all these posts saying that it's unconstitutional. But then former State Representative Nate Bell chimes in, and he says, nothing is unconstitutional until it has been ruled unconstitutional by a court. Until then, it's something someone either doesn't like or doesn't understand. So Paul Calvert takes this and talks about how disappointing that concept of a court ruling something unconstitutional being the last word, and how disappointing it is. And it started a really, really good conversation. This is what Paul said on Facebook. He said, the courts do not have a constitutional monopoly on being the arbiters of what is constitutional. I think just about every single elected official takes an oath to uphold the Constitution, not just judges. So the logic behind that would be, if you have an oath to uphold the Constitution and the court has a ruling, and let's say you're in an executive capacity, but you take an oath to uphold the Constitution as well, and you firmly believe that the court has done something that's unconstitutional. I mean, I don't know, like say that it's okay to deem somebody a citizen or not based on the color of their skin, which is what the Supreme Court did in upholding Dred Scott. Maybe your oath to uphold the Constitution is just as important as the Supreme Court's oath to uphold the Constitution. That is the argument here. So you come down here. This is fascinating to me. I really, really appreciate this. And you eventually get to, can you find Shane? He eventually responds here. Yeah, here it is. So Shane writes on Facebook in response to this, and you can watch all of this and see all this over at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, YouTube. He writes, it's literally the job of the judicial branch to interpret what is and what isn't constitutional. Now, let's just stop there. First of all, folks, one of the reasons we don't have the republic, that the Constitution is not in force right now, is because of an overactive judiciary. And I would contend it's because of this concept. You know, when the Fugitive Slave Acts were put into position, you know, you had people like in Wisconsin and other northern states that nullified these acts. They said, no, we're not going to return these slaves, and they passed their own laws directly against the federal government, okay? I'm just telling you like it is, and we've abandoned that whole thing now, mainly because the government has ensured that we'll never do it because we won't get our own money back that we are forced to send to D.C. So some of that hasn't really been conscious. It's more been subconscious. It's more been gradual. There's a psychological development to become a serf, to submit to our federal overlords. So there's a lot of that at play as well. But listen to what Shane says. He says, it's literally the job of the judicial branch to interpret what is and isn't constitutional. I don't respond further because we've done this 100 times before. That's their one job as the third co-equal branch of government. So Gary writes in on Facebook and he says, in that case, we don't need an executive nor legislative branch. Shane says, sure we do. They propose laws and actions, and then the judiciary makes sure they stay in the lines. Paul Calvert, actually, he writes, Congress has authority to block Supreme Court from ruling on certain things. Gary, judiciary, we need to keep scrolling here. Then Gary says, the judiciary has no way to enforce anything. The final arbiter is we the people. So Shane responds and he says, so you propose anarchy. That's fine if you want to throw out the whole system, but if you accept that our system is what it is and don't encourage anarchy, then the rulings from the courts are enforced by the executive branch. Paul Calvert, quote, he has a quote here, in all the other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make, end quote. Then Gary says to Shane, quit studying constitutional law and study the Constitution. Then Paul writes, I believe the executive branch has a constitutional duty to refuse to obey the courts when they are violating the Constitution with their rulings. Then Gary chimes in. How many times has the Supreme Court overturned itself? What about the Supreme Court upholding Dred Scott? Excellent point. Then we have Shane who writes, but the courts can't violate the Constitution if you accept our system of government. You can get to where you want to be, but you can't get there and leave our government in place. You propose anarchy, and anarchy is usually followed by dictatorship, which is fine if the dictator is on your side of the argument. I kind of like where both people's heads are. I mean, we're all weary of, the system not working and somebody having too much power. But right now, the Constitution essentially being trampled on. Gary writes, you want to see we the people kick in, let the Supreme Court of the United States strike the Second Amendment. Shane writes, sure, the Supreme Court has recognized errors it has made in the past and corrected those. Nobody is perfect. Paul then writes, if the courts are incapable of violating the Constitution because they have the right to declare what it means, then why make the courts take an oath to uphold it? Now that is a really good question. Shane says the Supreme Court has never overturned super precedent, which is a case that is cited later to make a decision. The Heller decision has not been cited twice to make later rulings. The Second Amendment is safe. Keep going to go to Paul. He goes, this is a great question. So were those erroneous rulings constitutional while they were being enforced? And then did they stop being constitutional when the errors were corrected? Keep going down. I think that's about it. It's really good. Scroll back up. That's where we want to leave it. So were the errors in the rulings of the court? Were those erroneous rulings constitutional while they were being enforced? And then did they stop being constitutional when the errors were corrected? This exposes the fallacy of the whole thing, in my opinion. This exposes the fallacy of the entire argument that the Supreme Court is it. And I feel like it's a fascinating discussion to have. I feel like those who are questioning 9 men in a robe, that's it. That's the final say. When they can do things that are blatantly dishonest, like calling Obamacare a tax when it specifically says it's not a tax, and when the President of the United States actually made public statements saying that it's not a tax, challenged George Snuffleupagus' reading of Webster's dictionary definition of what a tax is, all that stuff. That was about Obamacare, and that was how they made the individual mandate work. It's unbelievable. But so we got problems. But I love the point. The point is, and this is if you are there to uphold the Constitution, do you enforce a Supreme Court ruling? I mean, come on. If you were to say today, okay, let's say they've made another Dred Scott ruling. I mean, now that's something that we can all agree was morally abhorrent, was a scar on our country and our nation, and it took hundreds of thousands of Americans, hundreds of thousands of Northerners to die to try to end it, to try to end that stain, which is a perspective you don't really see very much. You don't see that really talked about very often. But if you were to take that and if the Supreme Court were to rule on that today, how many people would be calling on whoever was the president to not enforce such a thing, to not enforce such a terrible ruling that you're not a citizen because of the color of your skin? If you have a duty to uphold the Constitution, and you take an oath as an executive or as a legislator or as a member of the judiciary, wouldn't it all work if everybody just agreed to the original interpretation of what the document was supposed to do, which was to limit what the government can do to the people by force? That's a crazy notion, though, Paul. That's a crazy notion. Happy Independence Day, folks, or the beginning of it, and your celebrations. I hope they are immense, and I hope you reflect and give the Declaration of Independence a read. Why don't you? Matter of fact, we'll do that when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the zip line. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody.
The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, July 4th, 1776, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient suffrage of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which strains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And they start to list the grievances, ladies and gentlemen. And the grievances go on and on. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress Assembly, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, we affirm reliance on the protection of divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Happy Independence Day. We will see you guys on Wednesday. God bless America.